Hi, how's it going? This is Resin of Colloid for YouTube back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals. I'm here to finally get my episode 11 review of Dark Shadows. You know, it's really interesting here what happens. First of all, narrated by Alexander Moltke Isles, written by Art Wallace, directed by Lila Swift. And what you have go on really is Burke is assuring Elizabeth he has returned to make he has not returned to make trouble, but he inquires about buying Collingwood, which does happen in this episode. But there's something. There's some things I want to talk about though too. Keep in mind that what you have go on here is this is picking up from the previous episode. So Burke is in Collingwood with Carolyn, who invited him up. He's drove. He has driven her home. The teasers is again all these teasers do a really good job of tying in to the episode, and they do a damn great job here yet again with, you know, Carolyn asks Burke if she could take his coat. She does, and he says, "Hello, Mrs. Stoddard." He says, and she's sort of shocked. She goes, "Hello." You know, you also have this moment of where Carolyn is somebody who is very much infatuated with Burke, and that's something you could tell in the previous episode, but it's also something you could tell in this episode too. The writers are doing a really good job of setting up Carolyn to be the fool, but you got to give a lot of credit to Nancy Barrett, who's portraying her character as such, who cannot see past Burke's charm and wit. I mean, Mitchell Ryan's a good looking dude. That he, Burke says that he drove her daughter, that he drove Carolyn home. He brought her home, and Carolyn says, "I figured since I had invited him up, to he could see Uncle Roger." So they go into the Jolly Room, right? Burke goes into the Jolly Room. I love, again, the camera work in Dark Shadows. I've talked about being an art form, and it truly is. I love how they shoot Elizabeth's face here. Very stoic, very, not too happy. And you have her tell Carolyn that you, I want you to stay out here. And Carolyn puts one of her arms behind her back. I love the posturing of Carolyn here. And she says, "Oh no, I wouldn't miss this for the world." And that's your teaser that you're literally going in to Collinwood. That you have Burke in Collinwood. He goes into the he goes after going into Collinwood. He goes into the drawing room, and now you have the three of them: Burke, Elizabeth, Carolyn, in the drawing room for a interesting conversation. Elizabeth, it's not that I wouldn't put it that she's trying to be cold to him, but she's also being very direct with him. Um, she's not pulling really too many punches here. And again, look, if you knew anything about Elizabeth in the first 10 episodes, this woman does not pull her punches. Why would she? She has not. To be clear, knowing what we all know as DS fans, does Elizabeth really have something to hide? No, not really. So spoiler alert, right? um, you have a really interesting situation that Carolyn Carolyn almost breaks her promise to Burke in the drawing where Burke goes, you know, Elizabeth says to Burke, you know, about him coming back, you know, for Roger and stuff. That and Carolyn thinks that this is all silly. She tells her mother that he's gonna be leaving. I know because I saw. And Burke interrupts her and says, "Wait a minute, you made a promise." She goes, "I almost forgot." She goes, "Just you have to trust me. He's and is that true?" And Burke's like, "You're right," because Burke says something to Elizabeth to the effect of, "I don't, I'm not here to cause any trouble." And your daughter has told me that you and Roger think I've come back here to make trouble for you. And Liz says Carolyn talks too much, which I love that line. And when she almost spills the beans, Liz Liz goes, "Is that true?" And Burke's like, "You're right. Your daughter does talk too much." And it's a really good scene, right? I mean, I love the fact that you have this moment here because you have two chess players who are playing against one another, but they're not fully, you know. I don't think Liz is trying to hide anything on purpose from Burke, but she can't be as direct as she wants to be. But though too, she's not exactly holding back. Though Carolyn's in the room, Carolyn. In many ways, this is a 2-on-1 match. Carolyn and Burke versus Liz, and Liz is just like, "Nah, I'll deal with you both right here. I don't care." Liz is just Liz said something to Carolyn, you know nothing about it. And that's true, again, no Carolyn doesn't know nothing about the incident that happened, 10 years ago. And when we go into town, we see Sam Evans, who has been drinking. He's walking to the hotel and he quotes William Shakespeare. He meets Mr. Wells, who, is friendly to everybody pretty much. Well, is friendly to everybody. And you have, he goes, "You better not let your daughter see you like that." He goes, "Is something wrong with my hair?" And "Not your hair, but your breath." He goes, "Why don't you come in and have some coffee with me? I'm about ready to go on my break. I'm about ready to go on my break." And so Sam tells Mr. Rose, "You have nothing that would interest me," because Wells tells him, "I have something to tell you. It's about your old friend, Burke Devlin." So you have, sir. So now Sam is all interested. Uh, I love how when they like cut this scene, or when they shoot this scene, that they cut into the when they cut into the coffee shop, Sam's already had like 2 cups of coffee. It's Mr. Well, as Sam begins to drink his third, Mr. Wells tells Sam that Burke had a visitor, and Burke's only visitor, was Carolyn Stoddard, and Sam's like, "What?" Beautiful, beautiful, well played. He's like, "How?" And as he goes, Mr. Wells is like, he finds that where that Burke, who's from this town, and his only visitor is someone from that on that hill. I didn't think they were friends, and he goes, "They're not." And or sorry, Sam says they're not, and he goes, "Well, how long was she here?" And he's like, "Half hour." And she goes, "They were walking out arm in arm. Like Burke was the only friend she ever had, best friend she had in the world, and he was going to take her home." He goes, they said that? She goes, he goes, "That's what I figured." He goes, "You figured wrong, Miss Rose. Even she knows not to where she knows where her loyalty is." Sam doesn't want to really believe that Burke and Carolyn were arm in arm and walking up to Collinwood. But when we go back to Collinwood, we know that Mr. Wells' story is true because of the events going up on Collinwood, which is it's a great conversation piece to know that yes, Mr. Wells is right, but if I had to title this episode, it would be Rude Awakening, because it really is a rude awakening for Sam Evans and Burke up in Collinwood a bit. Like, cause that's the one place. Like, why would Burke be up there? What he did he go up there by himself? But to hear that Carolyn, walked out with him is just a shock to Sam. And again, he doesn't believe it. And when we go back there, Elizabeth is offering Burke another drink. Her and Carolyn go out into the drawing room and to get Carolyn more ice, and Liz closes the drawing room doors. And she's like, "What was all that about 2 days? Like like I don't care about your promise." What Liz is basically saying, "Screw your promise to him. You're my daughter." And though she doesn't say that line, that's in a sense what she is saying, and I love her for it. That you don't have to have the verbiage of "screw your promise to Burke," because you have Liz who's being very stern with Carolyn. What was all that about 2 days? And again, we've seen Carolyn be a bit two-faced with Vicky. So here, she's like, well, he had a letter from Venezuela about a business deal that he'd have to be there in 2 days. And she goes, well, Liz tells Carolyn, well, maybe he put that letter there on purpose. Um, And Carolyn goes, I thought of that. Then he got this phone call from Venezuela. And so Elizabeth is not sure whether to believe any of this. Um, Burke, now, I'll say that Burke is standing in the drawing room. He's just waiting for them to come back. um, so Carolyn goes off to get her ice. Sam, who borrows a dime from Mr. Wells, and decides to make a phone call in the lobby of the hotel room, where the entrance is. You see the phone booth. Mr. Wells makes Sam to promise to come back into the into the coffee shop. He's worried that Sam will sneak off to the Blue Bell for another drink of liquor. Um, Spoiler alert, he does. So Sam calls up. It's a phone booth. And, Liz picks up the phone. Sam asks for Roger. Elizabeth says he's out on the ground somewhere and asks if he wants to leave a message. And, Burke, comes through the drawing room doors, and you have a moment where he hears Burke's voice, but Liz also says, I'll be with you in a minute, Burke. She goes, do you want to take a message? She repeats it, and he just goes click. And she's like, hello? Hello? Jones? Jones? Um, Jones' reaction to it is so good because she's not expecting it to be hung up on. And then you have this moment of, you got hung up on? She goes, it appears that way. Back in the, drawing room, Burke is admiring a portrait of Jeremiah, and Elizabeth and Burke speak on how they used to like each other, how they would both admire that. Liz says, I used to like you, Burke, and Burke says, I like you too, Miss Stoddard. I've always respected you. And that Burke is assuring Elizabeth that the past is the past. He's not here to make trouble. Again, he keeps reassuring this throughout the episode. But he also asks if someone could buy Collinwood. What would it cost? Like $500, 25,000, 100, whatever. And Elizabeth says that Collinwood is not for sale. Burke says, in my line of work, my line of business, everything is for sale. We go back to the drawing room. Sam tells Mr. Wells that he was there, the smiling gift, as rolled in fortunes. He's describing the Trojan horse from the Battle of Troy, and that he's he's basically there to hurt them, and they let him in the door, and he can't. Again, it's a shock. You know, this. By the way, this is where Sam comes back from the Blue Whale, and Mr. Wells goes, "I can't believe you went and got her because you're a good win, Mr. Wells, and so are you." No, I'm not. She goes, "Yeah, Mr. Wells, this is. I find this interesting." He goes, "I like you, and I've always been fond of your daughter." Wait, isn't she like twice your age? Isn't she a little young for you? But hey, it's a why not? No, not the day date. So in the foyer of the when they go back, when we cut back, Burke tells Elizabeth how his father used to work, was hardworking, and he would work for lobster. He worked on lobster pots, would scrounge around. And when Burke got out of prison, he wanted to move and fast. Or sorry, he wanted to move and fast, but he was stopped cold, meaning that he's talking about when he went to prison. He spent 5 years waiting, seeing the world spin and not being a part of it. He reminds Elizabeth that she has also been a prisoner, meaning the 18 years that she has spent prior, or spent the past 18 years trapped on the estate of Collinwood. She does not leave the estate. She leaves the house, not the grounds. Um, Elizabeth says that Burke has become quite a philosopher. In the foyer, the telephone rings and the door to the upstairs landing slowly opens, but no one comes out. Carolyn leaves the drawing room to answer the phone. In the foyer, it is Joe calling to confirm their date for tonight. Carolyn's happy that things appear to be working out as she tells Joe that ghosts of Collinwood are going away, or they've all gone away. Elizabeth is worried. She asks Carolyn to find her Uncle Roger and bring him to the drawing room as Carolyn leaves to do so. Also, sort of before this, she when she hands up the phone, because this is the end of the episode, and this is what's interesting. She says, "Isn't he great?" And I love Elizabeth. Joe, no, Burke. So again, the infatuation continues with Burke Devlin. Carolyn is interested in Burke, and Carolyn does say, "So you're gonna bring them together?" She goes, yes, I am. And Carolyn leaves to find her uncle. It's a hell of an episode. Um, I really love the fact that we get this again. We get Burke in Collinwood finally. We're getting the setup for the showdown. Again, the Dark Shadows writers in these episodes are building suspense and anticipation for you. They're not going to show you something purely physical, mind you, or necessarily purely violent. They're going to build suspense first before they give you anything, and it's beautiful the way they do it. From the writing to the production, Dark Shadows has always been about building suspense ever since its inception. It doesn't ever stop this. It's a common true form of the DS. Um, so I want to get I want to give some more shout outs again. Shout out to Alan Gallant, who was on my channel not last night, but the night before. Again, huge shout out to Christine and Christine Pierce, Cara Tilly's Between the Shadows. Those links to those channels will be in the description box. Um, it has been a lot of fun going through these episodes still. I have a lot of episodes to get through, I know. I will do so, not all in one day, obviously. But again, I want to thank you guys for your patience and going on this journey with me, obviously. This is a cool thing to be able to talk about. You guys have a good day.